Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some more Pittsburgh Steelers tape breakdown and analysis. So Aaron Rodgers, officially a Pittsburgh Steeler. What are the Steelers getting with Rodgers? Let's talk about it. Before we start, if you guys could like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the site, SteelersDepot.com, would really appreciate that. So we're going to break this video down into a couple different components, the positives of Aaron Rodgers, the negatives of Aaron Rodgers, focusing strictly on the on-field play, and we'll break it down by subsections and the patterns I saw on tape consistent throughout his film in 2024. So the first thing I want to look at is, it seems so simple, but it can be seemingly so difficult for so many offenses, including Pittsburgh's over the last couple of years, getting your playmakers the football, identifying matchups, finding them, getting them the ball early, and just letting your playmakers make plays, something Pittsburgh, frankly, struggled to do consistently throughout the last several seasons. So this is Week 7 against Pittsburgh, obviously. First game the Jets have with Davante Adams. Rodgers' first throw of the game to Davante Adams. Now the throw's a little off, maybe some miscommunication on the route. Two guys trying to get reacquainted with each other, but you have the cornerback playing soft and off. Adams running the curl underneath. Rodgers is looking for him early, and so something Pittsburgh will have to do to maximize the value of George Pickens, of DK Metcalf, is getting those guys the ball and getting them early, and something that Pittsburgh just did not do a great job of last season. And so we're going to see it throughout the film. Find your playmakers in favorable matchups and at least attempt to get them the football. One thing that felt pretty consistent on tape was, and I hope Pittsburgh will implement this into their offense this year, is anytime the Jets got into twin receiver sets or put one of their top receivers, be it Garrett Wilson or Davante Adams after the trade, as number 2 aligned in the slot, Rodgers consistently took advantage of that and went after that particular player. So this example, 12 personnel, 2 tight ends to the bottom, got 2 receivers to the top, twin set here, and Rodgers targeting Adams in the slot as number 2 on this slant route for a first down. And so anytime you can, get these guys out of their normal spots, maybe put a cornerback less comfortable playing in the slot, somebody who normally plays on the outside, as is the case in this example with Dante Jackson, motioning over, now playing in the slot with an additional space, having to cover the entire route tree. A little more difficult position for that DB to be in. Rodgers finding number 2 when it's really one of his primary targets, in this case, Davante Adams. Good route, good throw, on the money, first down. Same principle in a different game. Let's go to Week 2 against the Tennessee Titans. 3rd and 3, so big money down. Jets motion out to empty here, got 2 receivers to the bottom, and in this case, we got Garrett Wilson, number 2, in the slot, and this is pre-Davante Adams trade, and so he is the clear number 1 weapon for this offense, and so aligning him number 2, Rodgers making checks at the line, maybe in anticipation of the Titans bringing some pressure, and finding Garrett Wilson to move the chains on that slant route, 3rd and 3. So whenever that number 1 receiver, in the sense of your top playmaker, gets aligned in number 2, maybe a different matchup, stressing the defense a little bit, Rodgers consistently took advantage in another conversion. Let's look at the same principle in a slightly different variation of it. This one a little more, I would say, elementary. Nothing here is like super radical, but I just like seeing it in things that seem so simple that Pittsburgh's offense needs. 3-by-1 formation here, ISO to the top. This is the X receiver. This is Garrett Wilson taking advantage of that one-on-one matchup. Now the cornerback's rolled up. That safety is creeping down, but you're reading the safety. He's not spinning down. It's not like a true rotation where he's buzzing down to the flat. And so you get this real one-on-one matchup. Find your playmakers. In Pittsburgh, that'll be George Pickens, DK Metcalf, a 3-by-1 backside slant. Hit that all day. Go from 2nd and 10 to, I think this was 3rd and short here is what the next down ended up being, and you're a much more favorable situation. And if Wilson stays on his feet there, you got a good chance for run after. So just find matchups, read the defense, ball out quick, things Rodgers can provide. Let's go to Week 18, a strong performance to have some positivity for a really poor season by the Jets overall. And same idea as originally talked about, number one receiver, top weapon, aligned as number two, in this case, Garrett Wilson. Top of the screen, this 2x2 formation, and settling down against zone coverage. Rodgers finds him now. Wilson drops the football. Obviously, not Rodgers' fault, but again, understanding the situation, seeing the rotation here, DB bailing, beating zone coverage. Should have been a catch and, picked up 7, 8, and maybe more if Wilson does something post-catch, but we're seeing that a lot. Now, that's going to fall a lot on Arthur Smith to really, conceptually be strong. Obviously, this is not all dictated by Aaron Rodgers, but it's just more to the broader point of a veteran like Rodgers who's seen literally everything in the NFL, understanding matchups and situations, taking advantage of them, but ultimately the core idea being get the ball to your playmakers. And just final point here, just to really illustrate the point, is, this is a mirrored concept. This is 2x2, same routes to both sides. Rodgers is not going to pick the tight end here. He's picking his top receiver in Davante Adams. So you're looking for your playmakers first. And so he could have looked here and had the same read. The tight end doesn't get the separation, obviously, but you're just really focusing on, the concept, but then where are my top guys that I trust to make plays? In this case, Wilson does not follow through with the drop, but you're just kind of feeling the process from Rodgers here. Same concept earlier in the game, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm all about patterns. I don't like showing just one thing. I think anybody who makes it to the NFL is capable of making one play in one particular moment. I think repetition and patterns and tendencies is really what football is all about. So empty set here, 3x2, two receivers at the top. Got Garrett Wilson, number two. Did a lot of these kind of twin sets to the top with Davante and Garrett Wilson, stressing the secondary, creating some more zone looks. And it's pitch and catch, but it doesn't always have to be hard. Don't make it hard if it doesn't have to be at the NFL level. I think this was 1st and 10. And so let's just, get an easy completion, get yards after, and really pick up a first down. One last example of this idea that I'm referencing, getting the ball to your playmakers in different alignments. This is the Halloween game against the Houston Texans, Week 9, shortly after the Davante Adams trade. RPO here, it's a little different look. Saw a lot of RPOs with the Jets. We'll see if that gets incorporated more with Pittsburgh. So you got a power run scheme married with this flat route by Davante Adams. And, flat is clear, nobody buzzing down. And so Rodgers going to pull it away from the running back, get the ball to his number two aligned receiver, but one of his number one guys in Davante Adams, and let him do damage post-catch. And so reading that nickel corner as he blitzes down, that might be Jalen Petre. He's going to blitz. You're going to pull the ball, get it to Adams in the flat. Again, not super complicated stuff, but you trust Rodgers to make these plays, take advantage of what the defense is offering, combating that, and you get another first down. The next idea is basically getting the ball out quick / beating the blitz. Last year with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, you had guys that would hold on to the football, stand in the pocket, take a bunch of sacks. Rodgers is going to be much different than that. His snap-to-throw time last year was 2.69 seconds, which tied for the 6th quickest or lowest in the NFL. And some of that is designed by offensive scheme, and the Jets ran a lot of screens, and so that certainly influences snap-to-throw times. But Rodgers is a guy that does not want to hold on to the football if he does not have to. So going back to that Steelers game, a little bit of pressure here, man coverage, cover one look. They're sending some additional people, adding on the linebacker in now, Raiders linebacker Landon Roberts. And so getting the ball out quickly there, hitting Davante Adams and letting him, get a couple yards. Again, doesn't have to be the most amazing, impressive, highlight reel throw in the world, but you got opportunity there to hit Adams open underneath, and it's a successful play for the Jets. Next example, Rodgers truly beating the blitz here. DB blitzing, free rusher, Rodgers knowing where to go with the football and hitting Garrett Wilson on the slant, and really combines with their other point of hitting that number two receiver, that number two aligned receiver, but it's that top playmaker in Garrett Wilson. And so DB's rushing here. Rodgers sees it. It's not picked up. Get the ball out. Not going to run around. Not going to bail. Not going to try to make a miss. Obviously, Rodgers not capable of doing that really throughout most points of his career, but certainly not right now. So Deshaun Elliott rushing free, ball out, turns a potential sack and pressure into a completion to Garrett Wilson. Nice tackle by Beanie Bishop. So I know some of the metrics on Rodgers are not great against the blitz. I don't know all the nuance of that and how that matches the tape, but to me, Rodgers certainly can get the ball out quickly, defeat the blitz. Let's go to week 2 against the Tennessee Titans, and these pressure looks on third down. This is 3rd and 8 have become pretty common. This one is kind of the structures. You see these sometimes more aggressive, less aggressive, but these more sim pressures and almost like a picket fence defense where you're seeing these DBs really play off with a really heavy potential rush look in front and the DBs at the sticks. And so you're expecting blitz here. You have to be able to beat that and trying to take advantage of some of that soft coverage on third down. And so here you're seeing Rodgers get the ball out quickly this time to Allen Lazard. Not sure who's all going to rush and who's going to stay in. They end up, dropping out the one linebacker, rushing the other, but trying to beat, the blitz here, this pressure look, and take advantage of these DBs sitting way off. And this one got close to the sticks. I'm not 100% sure if it did actually convert, but a situation where you're not going to have to sit back and let these guys just run into the coverage. You don't know how long the rush is going to hold up either. So kind of maybe not the best example of it all, but we're just seeing Rodgers do something differently than probably Steelers quarterbacks have in recent years, especially last year with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Under Arthur Smith, play action is a real core part of what he likes to do to marry, say, the outside zone game with their rollouts, and a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers is able to sell play action. Well, it was one benefit, temporarily at least, that Russell Wilson brought to Pittsburgh last year, an area where Justin Fields struggled over his 6 starts. So Rodgers, a guy, mobilities are going to be a question. Obviously, some limitations on what you can do with him. I do wonder about him getting under centers often, booting out, but play action can be effective. Will we see more pistol in Pittsburgh, which we saw throughout the season, especially as Rodgers battled through a knee issue and some injuries kind of in the middle portions of the year, really playing through some pain, getting him away from center, but then still having that downhill run action with pistol. Great sell here, wide open the tight end becomes, and this is an easy pitch and catch touchdown. So great job here by Rodgers to sell it. We'll look at the other end zone view to get a better look at it all. Really selling this well to Breece Hall, not immediately turning, shielding the ball so no one can see it, and then pivoting out, and it's a wide open touchdown. Now let's look at week 18. So we're seeing similar situations, red zone, goal to go, that type of stuff. And this time Rodgers under center, kind of showing a little bit healthier to close out the season. Same idea, good play fake, and then hitting a wide open Allen Lazard for the basically walk-in touchdown. Take a look at it from the end zone view. I really want to see how often Rodgers gets under center. The percentages, we run some of the numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head, but they're actually not too dissimilar how often quarterbacks were under center in Pittsburgh last year compared to how often Rodgers did it with New York. So just a good fake overall to really get that defense to bite, bring those linebackers in, see that real downhill action. That might be a hug blitz from the linebacker here, but point is making sure those linebackers step up, commit to the run, opens up the crosser behind, and it's another easy touchdown in crucial red zone territory, an issue where Pittsburgh also struggled last year. You're just kind of seeing the influence here. These DBs, jump up, and play action's got to be sold by everybody, the running back, the offensive line, high hat, low hat, that type of stuff. But you got these, receivers running free. Devontae Adams would have been open for a touchdown too. And I think the real influence of selling this from Rodgers has an impact on these receivers getting so wide open. Now let's look at some of the overall accuracy that Rodgers displays to really all levels of the field. Always been known as a quarterback that is hyper accurate in that kind of Drew Brees sense. And some of these vertical throws he can drop in the bucket downfield, let players run under it, but also a really good back shoulder thrower. And that was something that Pittsburgh, I thought, had better, frankly, even under Kenny Pickett than, say, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Russ was a guy that had a great moon ball and would let receivers go run under it. Less of the back shoulder type of stuff with, say, George Pickens, where a guy like him really excels. Not a big critique, just an observation of how they throw the deep ball a little bit different. Rodgers will do more back shoulder throws, but he can certainly throw that vertical throw and let that receiver go out underneath and catch up with the football. But really well-placed throw from Rodgers, only where his receiver can get it. James Pierre, no chance on this ball. Big completion. Let's look at accuracy on the move, play action. So, kind of marrying a couple of these ideas, play action and booting out, and overall accuracy that Rodgers shows this one week 18 against Miami. And we're seeing just a nice touch throw over the underneath defenders to Davante Adams. So, Rodgers rolling left, being able to square his shoulders and his hips and just put this one with good touch, good accuracy to Davante Adams. So, a guy that, age, you're not going to lose accuracy when it comes to getting older. You'll lose mobility and potentially arm strength, and in some sense that could affect accuracy, but just overall in terms of ball placement, not going to lose that. Rodgers certainly still has it. Let's go back to those back shoulder throws later in this Dolphins game. Game on the line, Jets up 25-20, third down late in the fourth quarter. Big chance here for Miami to get a stop, rotate to cover one, and you get this great back shoulder throw from Rodgers complete to Davante Adams to convert. Jets go on to win this game. So again, only where his receiver can get it. More of a back shoulder thrower than what Pittsburgh had last year. I think that can really, in some sense, invigorate George Pickens, who can win in a variety of vertical throws, clearly, but that was kind of his real bread and butter that just felt unstoppable in, say, his first couple of years in the NFL. But this one, you just can't hand that better to Davante Adams. So one last look at it, and just considering the moment too, this clutch moment to cap off a win, not mailing in the end of a bad season overall. High-level throw here from Aaron Rodgers. Very similar situation earlier in the season, week 9 against Houston, 3rd and 3, Jets leading by 4, 3 minutes left. And again, going back to layering some ideas, finding your playmakers. In this case, Davante Adams, aligned number 2, targeting him, trusting your guys will make plays against the pressure, accurate, on the money. This time, no back shoulder throw, slot fade to Davante Adams, lets him run under it, and it's a touchdown and a victory for the Jets. So the Texans run this stunt, this twist, doesn't get picked up well, get that free rusher coming in, and Rodgers standing tall in the pocket, making this throw on the money. Adams runs under it. It's a touchdown. Finally, from the accuracy bucket, let's look at just pinpoint accuracy over the middle of the field, which will lead us to our next point. Again, under pressure, and this one, just a great catch for sure by Garrett Wilson, but a great throw from Rodgers in a really tight window. Again, facing pressure, can't step into this one. All arm, all placement. DB's in great positioning, and that is literally just an inch over that defensive back's hand. And Wilson, a great snag, so credit to him, but that is great placement from Aaron Rodgers. Take a look at it from the aerial view. We'll look at the other end zone angle as well, but you're going to get some high-level accuracy to all levels of the field. Even the pocket movement, Rodgers drifting back a little bit, buying time, just some of those subtle things. Certainly a guy that plays within the pocket, which is intuitive given his age and lack of mobility and declining athleticism, but seeing that little subtle pocket movement, I think mobility in the pocket can be just as important as mobility outside of it. And Rodgers' little slide step, back up a little bit, buy himself that extra quarter second, and then make that super pinpoint throw to Garrett Wilson for the touchdown. Slide to the left, great throw, touchdown. Last area we'll look at that really consistently impressed me from Rodgers on the tape of 2024. And this one will be interesting. How often does Pittsburgh throw over the middle of the field? It's certainly been a hot button issue, not seeing a lot of it in Pittsburgh. Thought even Russell Wilson did more of it than his predecessors, but his game was still more about the moon ball. Rodgers can spray it to all areas of the field, and we see it here. Beating zone coverage, having more success against zone than I thought Russell Wilson did last year. Climb up, hitch, eyes downfield, and throw this one over the middle between the two defenders, Patrick Queen and Minkah Fitzpatrick, for the completion. And so, is this going to be, quote-unquote, allowed more by Mike Tomlin under Aaron Rodgers, or will there be still restrictors and a governor on how often the ball can be thrown over the middle of the field? We shall see, but Rodgers certainly capable of doing it, and if we see a decrease in that, it's going to be more scheme and philosophical than it is going to be on Aaron Rodgers. So just being able to make those throws to all levels, less predictable of a quarterback, a good thing for an offense. Just saw Rodgers beat zone coverage over the middle. Now we'll see him beat man coverage over the middle. This is a fourth down play hitting Mike Williams, future Steeler in this timetable. Mike Williams beating Deshaun Elliott over the middle. So just working leverage here. You got Deshaun Elliott playing outside leverage here on 4th and 2. Williams breaking to the middle. Rodgers finding him. It may seem routine, and in many ways it is. But in Pittsburgh, haven't seen a whole lot of these type of throws for quite some time, even in the Ben era. Ben was still a guy that liked to throw downfield, outside the numbers, more than threading the needle across the middle. Even some pressure here as Larry Ogunjobi gets a good shot on Aaron Rodgers, but a good accurate throw and a big-time conversion on 4th down. One last look at it from the other end zone angle, and hopefully seeing more of this in Pittsburgh. Going to week 2 against Tennessee. Now, this one was incomplete, but we're just seeing things, even conceptually, that we haven't seen in Pittsburgh too often. And so, this kind of divide route over the middle of the field, this deep in cut with this corner 7 route, trying to stress that defense, this too high shell, the safety coming over. But just the attempt here from Rodgers to try to drive this football over the middle of the field. This one's off by just a little bit to Mike Williams. Those two guys did not seem to have great chemistry in Williams' half a season with the Jets, but we're just seeing some different concepts that hopefully will be applied to Pittsburgh. Obviously, we can't say that with certainty, but Rodgers throwing the ball over the middle, just attacking more areas of the field, watching him hitch and climb, a little bit of pressure there. And it's not a bad throw. It's off by just a little bit, but even the attempt there, don't see many quarterbacks in Pittsburgh recently. Fields didn't really do it. Ross didn't do it that often. Pickett didn't do it. Seeing it here from Aaron Rodgers. Different game here against Miami, and this one also incomplete. I don't mean to show just the incompletions here, but it's a good ball from Rodgers. Off platform, down the seam to the tight end. Let's get Pat Frymuth on some of these routes. I thought Frymuth had a fine 2024 season, but really was not used vertically. It was kind of a little more like his rookie season, a lot of over-the-ball routes, a lot of things in the flat, some occasional one-on-one matchups outside, kind of ISO, backside, and third down moments. But I want to see route concepts like this. Take a look at it from the aerial view. Number 2, this is, I think, Ty Conklin, and a little nod route here. A lot of contact from the DB. This one probably could have been flagged. So another reason why I'm showing it, because I think this one probably was a questionable no call here, but we're just seeing Rodgers make these kinds of throws, really to open up the offense into different layers and different levels, so it is a little less predictable overall. That famous Hard Knocks quote last year when Baltimore was preparing for Russell Wilson, that he's, check downs and 3-pointers, the short underneath throw, take a profit, or those moon balls to the outside. That was really his game. Rodgers a lot more varied. And hopefully that opens up the offense, opens up more playmakers, and just more routes to run successfully in this offensive scheme. Couple more clips from this Miami game, and similar to that 4th down conversion we just saw against the Steelers, from Rodgers to Mike Williams, this time to Allen Lazard at the bottom, beating man coverage, outside leverage, the in-breaking route. Rodgers putting it on the receiver, and the completion, of course, is successful. So moving the sticks, again, beating man coverage, beating zone coverage, throwing the ball down the seam, things that Pittsburgh's offense has seemingly been either unable or unwilling to do in recent years. We're seeing that consistently from Aaron Rodgers. So I think that's one hopefully attractive element of the reason why this team waited him out and pursued him and signed him. I think the overall taking care of the football is another reason. Real low interception rate, that is still, I think, core and essential to how Pittsburgh wins. Don't turn the ball over. It's not even about winning turnover margin. It is just truly about playing clean and then opening up this offense with more route concepts. If you get DK Metcalf inside over slot, or George Pickens doing that, getting these big guys on small people over the middle, can really have some success. And then you really get excited about moments like these sim pressures we talked about earlier, where you're getting everybody up. Who's going to blitz? Are they going to bluff? They do bluff. They drop out this inverted cover 2 with the 2 deep players. You're splitting aces. You're beating the defense down the middle. It's a big-time completion to Allen Lazard. And so really just seeing Rodgers be able to attack those looks. I think you're going to see a lot of too high in Pittsburgh because when you have George Pickens, when you have DK Metcalf, those big outside vertical threats, defenses are going to have to take those guys away. So you're going to play more too high. You play more single high, middle of the field close. It really opens up those one-on-one opportunities on the outside. If you don't have the corners to support that, you got to give them some help over the top. And so you want to bracket with safeties. You're going to get these too high looks. Not always in this kind of sim pressure inverted look here, but it's like going to get more cover two and two-man, those types of concepts. That's really going to open up the middle of the field. And Rodgers is certainly capable, has the arm talent, the willingness to make those throws. His Mike linebacker does not get enough depth there. Lazard runs by him, and Rodgers puts it on him for the completion. One last look. Now let's talk some of the negatives Pittsburgh will get with Aaron Rodgers. A briefer commentary more focused on really kind of two areas. The one is pretty obvious but worth talking about. At 41, turning 42 in December, that mobility that Rodgers had earlier in his career, and he was never the most mobile quarterback, obviously, has really diminished with the Achilles tear, battled a knee injury last year, and often he became a sitting duck. You see this here in Week 7 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rodgers eyes downfield, trying to hitch, climb, nothing there, but he can't escape Larry Ogunjobi with one of the few sacks he had. Really one of the few sacks defensive lineman in Pittsburgh not named Cam Hayward had in 2024. And so if you were 10 years younger with sprier and fresher legs, and for a Steelers team that did get to watch Justin Fields and Russell Wilson be able to create and extend, not going to get that from Aaron Rodgers. Same idea, week number 2 against Tennessee, and there's a good coverage sack here. This isn't necessarily just on Aaron Rodgers, but you see a guy that's playing from within the pocket. He's not looking to run, and there's value in that. Obviously, it would be refreshing in some sense for Pittsburgh, but you see a guy who's not going to escape that pressure from the backside there. That outside linebacker runs the arc, gets him from behind, and just looking at a guy that, if he had felt that pressure, is not going to be able to get away. And so you see a lot of quick throws. You see a pretty heavy emphasis on the screen game. And for young Steelers offensive line, can they protect Aaron Rodgers is a really big question. One more example this time, the end of the season, Week 18 against Miami. And Rodgers, same idea, pocket begins to constrict and collapse, and down he goes. Now there's good coverage all the way around, but you just talk about a guy that obviously unable to be able to extend, create dramatically in the way that we saw Pittsburgh do it last season, even with other quarterbacks like a Mitch Trubisky or a Kenny Pickett. Those guys clearly more mobile. So somebody that, could you escape and maybe split those defensive linemen if you're Justin Fields? Probably. You have a chance, at least. Rodgers, obviously, and this is not shocking. This is not me breaking any news, but to really apply the tape to it. And I really just saw, and it's hard to quantify, but I really just saw the Jets offense. It was really screen game heavy. RPO, screen game, get the ball out quick. They did not want Rodgers having to take these deep drops and sit back in the pocket. And I don't know if that was more philosophical by the offensive coaching staff or trying to play to Rodgers' strengths, but we'll have to see maybe a different style of Steelers offense. Will they rely on the screen game more? Will it be successful? Questions to ask. The other aspect of his game, and I don't really have a good phrase for it, I would call it un-Aaron Rodgers-like things, where in his older age, the play declines. You just don't maybe get the same level of high-end quarterback play, at least not consistently. I think in moments, in any particular throw, you can still see the best of Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if you're going to get that as often as you would have even a couple of years ago. This is a good example, week 2 against Tennessee. Play action. And it's always difficult to understand what the quarterback is reading, what the concept is, but you got a 2-man route, max protect. I mean, it's a pretty simple read. Got a receiver running wide open here. Rodgers looks to throw it, doesn't, and ends up taking a near sack here. So take a look at it from the end zone view. And there's always nuance and discussion about what the read is and, what you thought maybe some underneath defender was going to do if he was going to get depth and take away a throw. But it just looks there. I don't know what else Rodgers was trying to do here. It's, again, 2-man route. The concept works. And you wouldn't expect that from somebody of Rodgers' caliber. Just kind of this, I'm faking the crosser and then running to the corner. It works super well. yes, underneath defender, but you're going to throw that over the top of him. You're throwing this to the sideline. There's no deep half safety. It's middle of the field. He's occupied by the other receiver clearing things out. I don't know how Rodgers is not pulling that football. I mean, I'm going to take my chances and assume this DB with his back to the ball, not going to make a play on a sideline throw, down here, upfield shoulder to the 25-yard line, and Rodgers pulls it down, and this could have been a big play. It wasn't. You just kind of wonder what was the thought process there. Sticking with this Tennessee game, good read here by Rodgers. Blitz comes, middle of the field is open, a tighter window throw, but one certainly Rodgers able to make, and this ball just kind of dies a little bit behind. Garrett Wilson can't corral it, and Rodgers not able to fully stride into the throw here. And I don't know if that was some of the issue, kind of not able to really transfer that weight, but maybe some declining physical traits. I don't know if that's coming off the injury, and he had to kind of work through that. It was early in the season, but this one just a bit off here from Rodgers. This pass incomplete. We'll look at it from the aerial view in just one moment, but again, just a little bit of uncharacteristic play from somebody that you expect and is going to make those plays from the pocket. It's a tight window. That DB is underneath defender 49 is certainly going to try to squeeze that throw, so you probably are trying to angle that one a little low in a way, but for a really precise, hyper-accurate quarterback Rodgers has been, I'm going to raise my expectations for these types of throws. This is not, a Justin Fields week 1 last year or some really raw, underdeveloped guy who's trying to figure things out at the NFL level. I'm going to raise that bar for Rodgers if Pittsburgh wants to win a playoff game, and just didn't see it here. Let's go now to the end of the season. Kind of like the first example, play action, boot to the left for Rodgers. This one open, Davante Adams putting his hand up forward, and this one just off the mark. And that's two guys that have played together for a long time, Rodgers and Davante Adams, and they were together for several weeks at this point off the trade. Again, these might not be the easiest throws in the world, zone coverage, trying to fit it in there, down there, low red zone into the end zone, obviously, but just expect Rodgers to be able to make that throw in his sleep, just given his resume and what you would expect from somebody like him with all that physical, arm talent, accuracy, placement. It's there. And yes, defender underneath in the flat, but he's being held. This defender over the top, he's not going to squeeze this throw. Just maybe whenever Rodgers is no longer able to really set up his base and transfer and be super technical with his lower half, maybe you're getting some of that lack of accuracy because the arm just can no longer quite make up for it. And even just quickly, one last look, you see the frustration from Aaron Rodgers, so somebody that's going to show you how he feels about a moment. And I'm just kind of looking at this one more time, and maybe he wanted Adams to settle between those defenders, but I think with that, one Dolphins defender running to him, settling him. I know the rule is run versus man, sit versus zone, but if you sit here and that defender's able to squeeze, I'm okay kind of running to some cleaner space and running away from that with this defender being held underneath. But you see Rodgers very animated there and even kind of motioning at the last second. I think right about there, you just kind of saw motion to his right, which would be Adams' left, and you just kind of wonder how all that's going to fit. But that gets into more of the off the field and chemistry and volatility of strong personalities, things I don't want to go to in this video. Finally, last clip, we'll look at Week 18 against Miami. Just a quick look at the situation. Situational football, always important. Jets up 25-20 late in the fourth quarter, 2nd and 5. Chance to really put this game away, but you got to be smart here, protect the football. Worst case scenario, field goal puts you up 8. Dolphins cannot take the lead. You just kind of get a bad decision here from Rodgers. Another one off play action, so you kind of wonder, I don't want to dig into his numbers on success or lack thereof potentially off of play action, even though we talked about earlier he's able to sell it well. But you see him boot out here, and just a throw that does not need to be made to risk potential disaster or turnover for not a ton of reward. I know if you pick up a first down, you can really bleed some clock here, but this throw's just simply not there. And Rodgers trying to throw this one, kind of crossbody a little bit, defender in his face. Tight end's not even looking, but you see these defenders converge, and very fortunate this one was not tipped or undercut and picked off in a moment where the Jets are in control, and he just cannot turn the football over. Historically, Rodgers has done a great job taking care of the football, the lowest interception percentage in NFL history, but you just see a poor decision you would not expect a veteran to make, especially Aaron Rodgers. So that's why I kind of put these under the larger umbrella of un-Aaron Rodgers-like moments, and this certainly qualifies. So, to recap the good and bad of what to expect with Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh from an on-field perspective, we'll start with the good and just on screen throw up some of the bullet points, the things we talked about to wrap everything up, finding playmakers, getting his playmakers the football, taking advantage of matchups and situations and different alignments. We saw that consistently, and so you would expect guys like George Pickens, DK Metcalf to be fed the football because a guy like Rodgers knows their value. He's going to make sure those guys get the football early and often. The snap to throw time to beat the blitz and just being able to diagnose pre-snaps, obviously you would expect from Rodgers what he's done throughout his career, and so that's the guy that can counter what defenses throw at him well. Being able to sell play action, I think obviously with somebody of his experience and one of those last of a previous era type of quarterbacks that were able to call their own plays, in college and in their early careers, and guys that worked under center a lot more before the adaptation of spread systems and clap counts and that type of stuff. Rodgers able to really do some of those little things well that a guy like Russell Wilson was able to show as well. The overall accuracy I still think is there with Aaron Rodgers to different levels of the field, so there are some blips that we talked about, just looked at, but I think overall he's still an accurate quarterback, one of his strengths. And then hopefully, and this will be more scheme dependent and I think very interesting and telling to watch, but utilizing the entire field more, middle of the field type throws, being able to really threaten defenses at all levels. Rodgers is certainly capable of providing that, assuming the offense and Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin allow him. On the negative side, obviously the lack of mobility is going to be an issue and really going to emphasize the offensive line, especially left tackle Broderick Jones, having to protect him because he's not going to be able to escape. There is a sitting duck aspect to his play at this stage of his career. And again, you do wonder, especially when he's not able to throw with a perfect platform from a clean pocket, you see some of those un-Aaron Rodgers-like moments that may suggest a decline in physical tools. But regardless, he's not at that consistently high stride level that he has been over the course of his Hall of Fame, 4-time MVP career. So, long video. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. I know that this is going to be a really controversial signing, and listen, he was not my first choice, but he was the last choice for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're focusing on not was this the right signing, the wrong signing, should they have gone after somebody else, should they have stuck with Mason Rudolph, not focused on that for this video. We're just focused on the reality that Aaron Rodgers is in Pittsburgh. What is he going to offer? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What can you expect from Aaron Rodgers going forward? That is the intent. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, check out SteelersDepot.com. Ton more coverage on the Rodgers signing, the reaction, and everything else coming down the road. You know it's going to be, as it has been, the big story in Pittsburgh and in the national media. So thank you guys again, and we'll talk to you soon.